Do you remember France from our What the Heck is Azeroth discussion? France had a pretty minor role in that one, but we're gonna co-opt it again for this opening as well. Thanks, France. You're a true G, as the kids say in this day and age. Let's say that, just for example, the EU did not decide to rename itself France for no reason whatsoever, and the only thing named France was France. However, France, at some point in time in the 60s, suddenly decided to stand up and hustle its way south, just under where Morocco is at. Yet grew legs, stood up, and walked straight over the Mediterranean and sat its fancy self down in Saharan Africa. This sounds weird, but Moonglade did exactly this between Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft. It grew legs and marched its way north from its spot where Azshara was to north of the World Tree. Welcome to Ancient Lore, a discussion series where we peel back the layers of world building and story to examine, understand, and discuss where we came from in the World of Warcraft. Today's topic is Azeroth's crazy content nonsense, and as always, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below or connect with me on my Discord. Okay, my opening was a touch facetious, but these things really do happen between games and expansions, and not just for World of Warcraft, even though that's the strongest set of examples we have to observe. It happened not just between games as well, but also the expansion packs, specifically Beyond the Dark Portal for Warcraft 2. Frozen Throne for Warcraft 3 gives us less to work with in this regard, as Blizzard was developing the world map for World of Warcraft at the same time as it was finishing the expansion, but we do see a pretty big oopsie on the map of Outlands. To set our boundaries, unlike some of these map makers, we'll be focusing on weird and strange map changes that happen between games and expansions. While normally I need to caution against the novels or comics not being used, in this situation they really can't be in the first place, so we don't need to worry about that. Also, this episode will not have a lot of visual fidelity, as most of it will be just pictures of maps from the RTS handbooks and overworld maps from World of Warcraft Vanilla. Moonglade did indeed start out south of Winterspring back in the original Warcraft 3 Night Elf campaign. We can see it as a part of our trip up Mount Hyjal through Kaldorai's Sacred Lands. During Mission 3, The Awakening of Stormrage, we visit Moonglade, a very short and convenient walk from the Ashenvale Forest. If that sounds odd to you, it also sounds odd to me. But as you can see on the screen right now, it actually happened, with the next mission sending us to the Barrow Dens to awaken the sleeping druids. The difference here, in World of Warcraft, is that the Moonglade is suddenly directly north of Hyjal, kitty-cornering with Felwood and Winterspring. Blizzard never provides an explanation for this, instead letting us sit and wonder what the heck happened in the first place with world design. But we can continue with oddities from Warcraft 3 when we take a look at the map of Outland from the Blood Elf campaign. Looking at it, do you see it? Clearly we're on a chunk of Hellfire Peninsula, with that easily recognizable red rock and dust anyone who's played TBC can remember. We also see the Black Citadel, soon to be renamed the Black Temple for those TBC aficionados once again, as well as the Mountains of Flame. The latter I can't actually find on any TBC maps, which isn't odd, as many times specific minor locations get brushed aside or forgotten, but the Black Temple, also known as Fortress Shadowmoon during Warcraft 2, that's well documented as being at the far eastern end of Shadowmoon Valley. It's concrete. Yet here it is, sitting smack dab in the middle of Hellfire Peninsula for some reason. While it's generally accepted that this is a back and forth retcon, I feel this might actually have been a case of mistaken identity on the part of the Warcraft 3 devs, and we're actually thinking of Hellfire Citadel instead of the Black Temple, but that may just be me cutting them a bit of slack. There's a few other less than major oddities we can scrape from Warcraft 3 yet still. The mysterious southern coast of the Barrens, for example, one could easily argue that Thrall and his people landed on the strip of land the pirates occupied currently in World of Warcraft, but considering they had to venture far north from where they landed to help the Tauren reach the plains of Mulgore, that doesn't make any sense. Dustwallow Marsh wouldn't have made sense. It's far too damp and wooded for the initial few maps of the Orc missions in Warcraft 3. Chalk it up to retconning the map of the Barrens, but considering how vital the arrival of the Horror on Kalimdor was, you'd think this would have been considered at least when designing Kalimdor for World of Warcraft. In addition, one thing that wasn't incredibly well documented were maps of Lordaeron pre-Scourging. While obviously with World of Warcraft, we have a more detailed layout of the Northlands and why the nation of Lordaeron was so prosperous, our only real map of the region beforehand comes from the initial Warcraft 3 human campaign. This map, provided during the first half of that campaign, shows a very weirdly compacted Northlands, with Hearthglen having shifted strangely south and Stratholme being nowhere near where it should be, far northeast of Cardero. The same map also strangely situates Airy Peak southeast of Durnhold Keep, instead of directly north where they have it in World of Warcraft. Again, we chalk these up to retcons, but it does seem a little bit silly. In our final installment of strangely shifting locations, we'll dive back into the transition between Warcraft 1, 2, and then World of Warcraft with the location of Blackrock Spire. While in the original Warcraft, Blackrock was nestled in the Red Ridge Mountains just north of the Swamps of Sorrow, while this is accurate, what's strange is we don't see Red Ridge Valley, Lakeshire, or the small ridge of mountains that encapsulate the Swamp of Sorrow. In fact, strategically speaking, if the map we have in World of Warcraft accurately represented what the map was in the original Warcraft RTS, the Horde most likely would have been bottlenecked in the tiny pass north of Karazhan between Stonard and Grand Hamlet, now Darkshire. The Warcraft 2 map does a bit of a better job, pushing Blackrock Spire further north, but lacks any relevant details for the rest of the southern third of the Eastern Kingdoms. Finally, in World of Warcraft, Lakeshire and Redridge are granted full regionhood, and Blackrock was more officially positioned between Searing Gorge and the Blasted Lands, alongside that delightful statue of Lothar. There's certainly other geographical locations and oriented oddities out there in the world, but these are some of the more noticeable ones from the history of the RTS games. In a future episode, we'll look at some of the lost or transgressed locations from the RTS titles that deserve a bit more love, attention, or even gratitude in World of Warcraft. We close this book of Warcraft history here and save the rest for another time. If you've enjoyed this feature, please consider subscribing here at youtube.com/theDanNation, as well as joining my Discord at tinyurl.com/Danscord. It's a Discord, but with 100% more Dan. A big thank you to Turtle Wow, where the non-map and manual visuals, at least, footage you see during the episode it was recorded at, as well as having provided the backing track for this piece. From the Lore Bunker in Boston, Massachusetts, this is Dan wishing you a wonderful and wide world of lore.